glaciers, melting ice packs. That's not enough of an image for me. He would imagine it as a windmill. As you know, he was into tilting at windmills. And he would see that windmill like this being fed in his heart. And just like when he discovered the windmills and thought they were giants, they had 4 arms, right, coming out their back. And he would then say, wait a second, I've listened in a way to the folks like Chris Field, and maybe not clearly enough, but each of these arms is probably going to wreck or disrupt some aspect of the lives of him and everyone else. And that black arm right there is symbolic of what climate change is going to do to our water. Not just dry it up, not just make the oceans acidified, not just make the waves greater and higher, but the water that comes down when we're not expecting it, it's going to cause floods. So that arm symbolizes the impact climate change is going to have on water. That one up there symbolizes the impact it's going to have on our air, the quality of the air, how it's going to hurt our health, and also the velocity, how much more powerfully in some places the wind is going to blow. And that one, Don Quixote would say, is the arm that's going to affect the temperature. In some cases, the temperature is going to increase. It's going to decrease. It's going to create great havoc for us. And then, and this is my question to you, but you don't have to, just to think about it, if that's water, air, and temperature, what's that one? What's left? Okay. I think there's a lot of good answers, but Don would say it is going to be the increase and severity of weather events. And so, and Don's imagination would be even greater than it was when he first started tilting at windmills. He would envision what was inside the stomach of climate change. And maybe if it was on the climate change menu on a certain day, that could be Norfolk, Virginia being, consumed. That could be Miami. It could be the California Delta, Okay. And when he envisioned all of this, he would then say to himself, God, I got to do something about it. And he would say to himself, wait a second, I got to execute I have to find a real powerful weapon. And he would think and think, and he would say, others are applying the conservation, the increased energy weapon, the renewable energy weapon. And he would sit back and he'd say, wait a second, those are all good, but are they really strong or are they really helping? And he would say, wait a second, we already have probably enough greenhouse gases around the planet. And he would say to himself, the world is using that much needs that much energy right now, in 10 years that much, in 50 years about that much. And what is the world's choice of energy? It's fossil fuel, and it will be that for many, 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 many years. It'll be that because fossil fuel, coal and oil, is cheap, and really cheap. And there are energy-deprived areas of this world. They are going to continue to cut down trees because they need the energy. So he would say to himself, what is the strongest solution, the strongest weapon I can use against climate change? And he would say, wait a second, the world needs a national energy strategy, at least the United States. And he'd put that aside, he'd see it important, but then he said, look, the first step is we have to put a tax on carbon. And Dulciana would say, that carbon tax would work something like this. For those who do not cap and reduce their greenhouse gases, they would have to pay money, and that money would travel over here into a national fund that would be used for doing good things and dealing with climate change, etc. And it would have to put a cap on not necessarily Exxon, but all the industries that's around Exxon that involved in burning coal and oil, and it would have to put a cap probably on the Coke industry, the Koch brothers, in part because they have great energy businesses, and they're not, and we have to put a cap on their mouth and their pocketbook, okay? And we'd have to put a cap on some of the great utilities that are just billowing out greenhouse gases like Duke Energy. And we have to continue this relatively aggressive approach by the president and others to further put a cap on oil, coal. And Don would say, well, when we finally have a national tax on carbon, he could sit on his horse on top of this bathtub, which Elton suggested I put in the painting, with a cap on it, and underneath that, or in that bathtub, would be greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide trace, methane, etc. And he could sit and he could relax and be rested. Now, is that okay?